Was I getting paranoid? I had been wondering about that for a while now, and I still didn't have a definitive answer. I had just returned from work, and only had about half an hour before my wife, the beautiful 32-year-old Emily, came back from the gym, as she did every Monday. I quickly changed, and then there I was, intent on inspecting once again a couple of drawers reserved for her in the dresser, being careful to move her undergarments as little as possible, and putting them back exactly as they were. What was I looking for? I didn't know, or rather I did. I was searching for evidence or clues of her betrayal, or at least for something that didn't add up, something she wouldn't want me to see. Once again, I found nothing suspicious, exactly as the last time I had looked. I still had a bit of time left, so I inspected her 2 closet shelves devoted to sweaters, though without much hope. Hope? What was I saying? Was I perhaps hoping to find something that would make me doubt her? Of course not. I was hoping to find nothing. So why did I keep searching? I was running out of time. In a few minutes she, punctual as a Swiss watch, would ring the doorbell, hug me, and I would do the same, as every loving couple should. Ding-dong. 2 brief sounds. It was her. I opened the door. She stepped into the house and, smiling, threw her arms around my neck. She kissed me, and I kissed her back. Hi, Nat. Hi, Emily, how's it going? All good, just a bit tired. That hour of Pilates always destroys me. And you? Fine. Thank you. I just got back. Usual everyday routine, and the usual problems to solve. Nothing special. Indeed it is. My name is Nathan. I am 36 years old, and I am the corporate network manager for a major local software house. Obviously an expert in both hardware and software, both corporate and Microsoft. I am a lifelong computer geek. My PC, laptop, and even my 2 cell phones, one corporate and one personal, are filled with all kinds of programs and applications, and during downtime at work, I surf the internet extensively, not disdaining the occasional detour into the dark web, unbeknownst to all, of course. A layman would be incredulous at what one can find. Really, anything, both legal and illegal. Why do I visit those pages? Just like that, with no specific purpose, only out of curiosity. Knowledge makes one free, and I like to know. With my abilities, the work I do is particularly easy for me, ensuring that the company network runs well and fast, intervening immediately in case of failures or difficulties with staff computers. Taking basic business software courses and other such tasks is a no-brainer for those who know how to do it. What I call problems are actually minor issues, but I also enjoy putting on airs with my wife. Come on, I know you always solve everyone's problems. Now give me a little time to rest, and then I'll go make dinner. You can go ahead and watch the news on TV. When it's ready, I'll call you. Okay, what's for dinner tonight? Surprise, surprise. You'll see when we're at the table, Emily said, smiling at me and nudging me toward the living room. Giggling as I was ordered, I sprawled out on the couch. Then I pressed the remote control to turn on the TV and tune it to the appropriate channel. Yet the voice coming from the speaker did little to distract me from my thoughts. I loved Emily. She was the love of my life, the ideal wife. Beautiful, loving, kind, exuberant. Her breasts were perfectly shaped and a delight to behold. She was also intelligent, and sometimes our discussions on general topics highlighted that. She could listen, express her point of view clearly, sometimes admit when she was wrong, and insist when it turned out she was right, until I acknowledged my mistake. She did not flirt with other men, and never gave me any reason to think poorly of her. Perfect. Too perfect. We had met at the tennis club. Perhaps, based on my job, you might think that I am a bespectacled geek who spends hours in front of the computer without engaging in anything else or even having a social life. Nothing could be further from the truth. I am not an Adonis, but I am not bad either. I have a decent physique, and as a young man, I practiced martial arts before switching to tennis, a sport I have always enjoyed, both watching and playing, even competitively. While I was playing in a tournament, Emily was accompanying her little brother to a group class organized by the school. She noticed me. I noticed her, and I fueled my energy to win my match. We liked each other, dated, and 2 years later we got married, falling increasingly in love. Emily is an elementary school teacher, and her pupils adored her. Her parents also doted on her, and she was overjoyed with her job, a dream since she was a young girl. She loved being with the children, and also had the opportunity to almost always have the afternoon off, except on Tuesdays when the usual inter-school meeting with her colleagues was scheduled. So, twice a week, she took advantage of this time to go to the gym. Pilates on Mondays and machines and weights on Thursdays, to tone all her muscles. I, too, used to dedicate some of my time to physical activity. Tennis, of course. Although I no longer played in tournaments, on Mondays there was singles play, and on Fridays we almost always managed to arrange doubles from 6:30 to 8:30 p.m., when the chances of all being available were greater. The club had indoor courts, so weather was never a problem. And between quick showers and the drive home, I was always home shortly after 9 p.m., still a decent time for dinner. Except for work and sports, everything else remained for us, and our married life was very good, now that we had been married for more than 6 years. After the initial period of craziness and love's transport, we had calmed down, and life had taken on its own routine. Weekend jaunts out of town, or to the movies, regular summer vacations, almost always by the sea, but also short winter stays in the snow or in some European city, visits to our respective in-laws, etc. Normal things like everyone else. What about intimacy? We cuddled every night, close and tender, but the real lovemaking happened on Wednesdays and Saturdays, unfailingly beautiful. On other days we were a bit tired from work and sports, but Wednesdays and Saturdays were all ours, and sometimes we would even add Sunday mornings to the routine. Nothing was better than a little intimacy as soon as we woke up. We liked to prepare ourselves as if it were always the first time. We would shower separately, and she always wore delightful lingerie, sometimes even brand new, often one of those I had gifted her, even though she knew full well that it would last only a short time before ending up on the floor, untangled by my eager hands. By now we knew each other well, and we would exhaust one another in different positions, sweating, moaning, and both enjoying our love. We didn't have children, and for the time being we didn't plan to have any, though the discussion was not closed. Given our age, we would soon have to deal with it, and we would do so with joy. A wonderful marriage. So what? What was wrong with me? Emily's crystalline voice interrupted my thoughts. Come, Nat, dinner is on the table. I got up from the couch and headed for the kitchen. A normal evening awaited me. A delicious dinner, some TV cuddling on the couch, and then bed, snuggled up for some well-deserved rest. Emily quickly fell asleep while I, lying on my back with my hands behind my head, let my thoughts flow. I loved my wife, and her behavior told me that she loved me too. So what? Why was I not at peace? The fact is that at work one sometimes has to labor incessantly for days, even beyond normal hours, while there are often quiet periods when I sit in my office in front of the PC screen. I often use this time to catch up, which is absolutely necessary at night, but sometimes I wander freely on the internet, even amusing myself with some adult movies, and lately I had discovered a site full of erotic stories, some very funny and spicy. In particular, there was a section devoted to cheating, and I had become educated about the behavior of women who betray their partners, particularly the signs the cheater leaves behind. Unless you are a serial cheater, in most cases cheaters tend to exhibit similar behavior, and the clues they leave can be very obvious, as the irrationality of the behavior and the excitement of a new transgressive experience can cloud clarity. To make a long story short, the main red flags that could raise suspicions of ongoing treachery can be summarized in this list. 1. Changes in intimacy, such as a sudden reduction in sexual activity, or, conversely, new and unusual demands and behaviors. 2. Moving away from one's partner, spending more time at work, with friends, or finding a reason to be away from home. 3. A sudden focus on outward appearance, perhaps changing hairstyle or way of dressing, possibly in a more alluring or sophisticated manner. 4. Increased attachment to one's smartphone, more time spent calling and texting, perhaps trying to be inconspicuous, receiving calls but not answering them in front of one's partner. 5. Manifestations of unhappiness in marriage, with constant mood swings and finding any excuse to argue. None of these, or any others, could apply to my wife. She was still the same, not having changed one iota. So what? Why was I suspicious? The answer is not difficult. How is it possible, for example, that Emily never refused intimacy, not even once? How is it possible that she never had even a slight headache to elegantly avoid my advances? How is it possible that she never came home late, never claimed overtime at work, never went out for a girls' night, never flirted with anyone, and always treated me with love and respect? Sure, a few trivial fights occurred, but they lasted only a morning, and when we made up, our bed would sparkle. And what about her phone? It was always unlocked and left out in the open, without any fear of being checked. Sometimes, when it rang and she was in another room, she would quietly ask me to check who was calling her. Her laptop, the same, at my complete disposal, with absolute freedom for me to read all her emails if I wanted. And when she went shopping, she always asked me to accompany her, sometimes even insisting, though I didn't really want to. A perfect wife. Too perfect to be true. Or was it me who was paranoid and unwell? The doubt was there, but paranoia is hard to heal. When I was at home while Emily, for some reason, was away, I continued my search. Too bad they haven't invented an infidelity detector yet. I would certainly have been one of the first buyers. Today it was the bookstore's turn. We had common compartments where we kept books on subjects we both liked, such as photography, bridge, and language courses, and separate compartments. In the ones reserved for me, I kept my computer science, math, and science fiction books, while in hers I found mostly novels, especially thrillers and historicals, though there was no shortage of romantic titles. Taking care to adhere to the pre-established order, I would take one book at a time from her compartment, flip through it carefully to see if any papers or notes fell out, then put it back exactly in its place before moving on to the next one. I had done this several times before, yet I repeated it. I always had the doubt that I might have missed something the previous time. Today again, no news. All the books had been sifted through, and nothing had turned up. Happy? Certainly yes, but the day after tomorrow I could devote myself to another part of her closet, other drawers to inspect thoroughly. In fact, I had come up with an idea. Before I started, I would photograph the contents so I could put everything exactly back in place without her noticing anything. So I did, and once again nothing unusual or abnormal emerged. The days went on, and I was convincing myself that there was, in fact, nothing to be found. I was certainly less pensive, and even in the office I was calmer. Today, for example, was a day of complete rest, and I was relaxing. After a routine check on how well the network was functioning, I sat behind my desk to attend to my own business, certain, however, that some nuisance would undoubtedly call me to resolve a very big problem on his laptop, which would consume a good 4 minutes and 30 seconds of my precious time. While waiting for this still anonymous caller, I turned to my phone to test 3 new apps I had installed yesterday. The first was a scanner with promising features: automatic edge recognition, image stabilizer, near instantaneous focus, and a timer that made it easy to change pages between scans. Not bad. The second was a voice recorder that allowed both voice and external sounds to be recorded, as well as phone calls. Its notable features included automatic activation upon sound detection, background operation without anything appearing on the screen, and the ability to stream and save recordings to the cloud for convenient replay later. The third was an application for remote surveillance of public or private cameras with interesting functions: recording sound, a motion detector feature, and even face detection. I was trying out the first app when my cell phone rang. I looked at the calling number and gave myself a wry little smile. Murphy's Law had struck again. Here was the occasional nuisance caller, but I would have forgiven him. He was one of the nicest and only called when necessary. "Hi, Bob. Is there a problem?" "Yes, Nat. Sorry to bother you, but the laptop has a problem. I'm not getting the desktop. Instead, there's a black screen with white writing. I don't want to mess something up by doing something strange. Could you come and take a look?" "Sure, Bob. At the moment I'm free. I'll be right there." "Thanks, Nat. I'll wait for you." Its malfunction was quite common and, fortunately, often easily solved. It had probably been turned off incorrectly the last time, perhaps by unplugging it before the laptop shut down completely. In that case, it would have been sufficient to exit that screen with the Exit Without Changes button and restart Windows normally. Before leaving my office to go to Bob's, I took the opportunity to plug my cell phone into the outlet for a quick charge, since the battery was running low. As usual, I found myself fighting for a couple of minutes with the USB-C port, which had been unwilling to work properly for a few days. I had tried cleaning it with compressed air, but nothing had changed. At the end of the workday, I promised myself I would take the phone in for service to have the port changed. I could have even done it myself, but I did not want to lose the warranty. Besides, the store was conveniently close to home. I came home at the usual time, and as soon as I had time to set down the bag with the laptop, Emily appeared, smiling, and we kissed. "Hello, beautiful. Are you okay?" "I'm all right. How about you? How was it at the office?" "Usual stuff. Nothing special. I took my cell phone in for repair. Luckily, it's ready as early as tomorrow." "What about school?" "One of my boys got sick, and we had to call his parents to pick him up. But otherwise, everything was normal." "Get changed. Come on. I have to tell you some hot gossip about Pat. Maybe we'll create some atmosphere for tonight. It's still early for dinner." I smiled at the idea. It was Wednesday, and our post-dinner intimacy was a certainty. Patricia was a single colleague of hers, and Emily and her coworkers often interrogated her about her love affairs and whether she could finally find a man who suited her. I couldn't care less, but to please Emily I gladly listened as we giggled about her vicissitudes. The after-dinner routine had its script already mapped out, though small variations were not lacking. After watching television on the couch, just long enough to digest dinner a bit, I kissed her and said seriously, "I'm going to take a shower. Then I'll wait for you in the room." After last time, I applied some lubricant to the bed net, and I need you to test if it still squeaks. She chuckled and said, "Certainly. I look forward to helping you out." At the end of the shower, I went to my room and sat waiting on the edge of the bed. When I heard the water stop in the bathroom, I got up and quietly crouched behind the ajar door. Before long, Emily came in wearing only one of the beautiful undergarments I had given her. I was naked, and as soon as she crossed the threshold, slightly surprised not to see me on the bed, I grabbed her from behind, took her by the shoulders, and kissed her neck. I felt her quiver with a little shudder, both from surprise and excitement, which intensified when my lips moved to her earlobe as I simultaneously unfastened her bra. Before she could even react further, my hands cupped her breasts, and I gently massaged her nipples. They soon became engorged as she let out a small moan of pleasure. Her voice came out a little shaky. "Do you love me?" "Yes," I whispered, pulling my mouth away from her ear to move to her breast and beginning to kiss it softly. Upon contact with her gorgeous backside, covered only by a tiny slip, I sensed her anticipation. I knelt down behind her, gently removed her underwear, and ran a finger along her sensitive skin, which I could feel was already damp. I then lifted her and led her to our big bed, gently laying her down. I climbed up beside her and leaned over. I can't wait to feel you inside me. Please, Nat, make love to me. Let me first taste you, honey. I want to kiss you all over. Yes. Don't stop. Kiss me everywhere. Tonight you can do whatever you want. Oh my God. I'm all ready. I can't hold back any longer. It was just the beginning of a beautiful, long, and fulfilling evening of intimacy. By the end, we were exhausted and fell asleep in each other's arms. The next morning I was not feeling well. I must have caught a virus somewhere because I was very weak, had a stomach ache, and a slight fever. Emily was firm and adamant. Don't you dare go to work in this condition. I'm going to call and say you're not well. Tomorrow we'll see. If you're still sick, we'll call the doctor. I could not object. All right, but you'll see it's nothing. I'll be better tomorrow. Certainly, dear, we hope. Can you manage being alone while I'm at work? You don't even have your cell phone. Do you want me to call and stay home with you? Don't even think about it. It's not like I'm dying. You go safely to school. In case I can still call you from the landline or the company cell phone, you will see there is no need. All right, stay in bed for now. And if your fever gets too high, take a Tylenol tablet. Is it okay if I get something from the Chinese place for lunch so I can avoid tinkering in the kitchen? Very well. Go ahead and take it easy. I'll expect you for lunch then. Have a nice day. You too, and be sure to rest. She finished getting ready, then came up to give me a kiss before leaving for school. But I stopped her. You'd better not stand too close to me. If it's a virus, I wouldn't want you to catch it too. Somewhat displeased, she could not object to my remarks, and we said goodbye with a virtual hand kiss. I got back under the covers and dozed off again. By the time she returned, I was feeling a little better, even though still a bit dazed. My fever was gone, and I hadn't needed any pills. She greeted me with the usual kiss, not a virtual one this time, before I could protest. It was rare, because of my job, for us to have lunch together, and although it was Chinese takeout, we enjoyed the moment. In the end, still not feeling very well, I settled in the living room to relax while she tidied up the kitchen, unable to help her this time. Shortly, she joined me, and with soothing music playing in the background, while I fiddled with my laptop, she picked up her newly purchased book and continued reading. Time passed quickly, and finally Emily put her book down and asked, "How do you feel?" "Pretty good, thank you. Much better. Do you feel up to being alone? It's almost time for me to get ready for my gym training session with the machines. But if you don't feel well, just tell me. I can definitely skip it today." "It's not necessary, thank you. I don't need anything, and I think it was just a minor issue. By tomorrow, I should be able to return to work." "Well, then I'll get ready." "Sure, go ahead. Just one thing. Would you mind dropping by the service desk to pick up my cell phone? It's definitely ready by now. It's already paid for, but you should get it before you go to the gym because by the time you leave, the store will be closed." "No problem. I know where it is. It's just a little detour from my route. I'll head out a little early." About an hour after Emily left with her gym bag, I moved to the kitchen with my laptop, intending to grab a snack to regain my strength. In front of the screen, with a package of cookies and a grapefruit juice by my side, I was browsing the web, clearly taking advantage of the home Wi-Fi, when a yellow notification rectangle appeared for a couple of seconds. It warned me that a new file was now available on my cloud. What was it about? Without having directly operated there was only one possibility, and at that thought I smiled. Evidently Emily had picked up her phone, and sure enough, the voice recording app I had installed had gone live. I was basically testing its performance. I went to my account, opened the relevant folder, and found an MP3 file named with the date and time. It was the one I was interested in, and double-clicking it made it run. I heard a few seconds of indistinguishable rustling sounds, followed by the sound of a door closing. Then a slightly effeminate but firm male voice said, Hi Emily, welcome. Are you ready for the usual defatiguing and decontracting massage? Very ready, I heard my wife's joyful voice reply. Didn't you get too tired with the machines? Well, I have to show that I'm trying hard. I certainly can't let those watching suspect anything. But don't worry, I still have energy. I won't be a dead weight. Suspect what? I thought uneasily. Something strange was in the air. Good thing. You know I like to see you participating and active, my pretty little sweetheart. Take off that suit, go on. I want to see that beautiful figure of yours. What the hell? I thought. She gets upset like that without saying anything. What's going on? I then heard faint rustling, which I imagined must be the sound of clothes being slipped off and falling to the floor. But are you already without panties? Then you're such a flirt. Take off your bra too, so I can see you completely bare. Let me kiss your beautiful backside and your intimate area, you delightful one. Yes, on Thursdays I'm all yours. Good girl. Now place your arms on the bed and get into position so I can see everything clearly before I make love to you. Come on, obey, just like that. Your legs perfectly spread. But, so, it's a bit too explicit. Exactly. Come on, darling. Beg me to make love to you like never before. Oh yes, make love to me. Make love to me like you always do. Passion, and swiftly. Emily's voice shouted through the speaker. Ah! Then the voices fell silent, and I heard the unmistakable sounds of passionate lovemaking. Surprise, astonishment, disbelief, anger, a desire to smash everything, maybe even to kill. Were these my feelings at the time? No, none of these. Only a sense of emptiness, heavy and frightening. I felt as if I were engulfed in a chasm. I was short of breath, my heart barely beating, and my eyes averted. But immediately I closed them, took my head in my hands, and burst into tears. My marriage was over. My life would never be the same again. The laptop resumed spitting out voices, but I could no longer hear them. My ears were ringing, worse than severe tinnitus, and my regular breathing was slow to return. I felt like a zombie. Was I a weak man to cry like that? Crying at funerals is not considered weakness, and I was crying for the funeral of my marriage. It didn't last very long. I began to breathe again, lifted my head, and wiped my tears away. I returned with the mouse to the audio window, replayed the recording from the beginning, and listened to it in full this time. The intercourse lasted a good half hour, amidst screams, moans, interrupted sentences, and several moments of intense pleasure. I heard Emily's backside being struck forcefully until she cried out with a mixture of pain and pleasure. Ouch! Ooh! Yes, yes! Make love to me! Don't stop, you rogue! Don't stop! In whatever position they were engaged, he was giving it to her with great intensity. I could hear her panting and almost picture her, dripping with sweat and desire. Who gives you the best member, dear? Oh, Mark, yours is the best I've ever had. Are you ready? I'm about to climax within you and completely satisfy you. Yes, give me all of yourself. I'm about to reach my peak too, again. Ah, ah. Am I better than Nat? Answer me, dear. Come on, answer me. Am I better than that unfaithful husband of yours? Yes, yes, you're better. But don't be a jerk. Nat is a good husband. Ah, ah, continue. Sure, sure, but let's repeat together. My husband is a bit of a doormat. My husband is a bit of a doormat. Come on, repeat with me. No, come on. Ove, your touch feels good inside me. Then say it, come on. Let's say it in chorus. And I heard the two voices almost in unison, somewhat trembling and labored but also amused, in a duet I could never have imagined. My husband is a bit of a doormat. My husband is a bit of a doormat. No, come on. What did you make me do? I don't want any more. Agree. It's enough that I betray him with you. Let's not be unkind. All right, come on. It was just a bit of fun. Just make sure that you make love to me properly, and that's all. I hope very much that he never finds out. And how could he? We meet every Thursday without telling each other anything. You don't have my phone number, and I don't have yours. Our meetings always take place in this soundproof, windowless massage parlor. No one knows anything, and if you're not the one to tell your husband, I certainly won't. I closed the audio by angrily pressing the mouse button. A little doormat. If there had ever been any chance of forgiveness and saving the marriage, it melted away like snow in the sun. A betrayal dictated by a moment's passion would have almost no chance of forgiveness and reconciliation, and a betrayal characterized by humiliation and disrespect would have no chance at all. My marriage was over, and the culprits would pay. Going to counseling and trying to save the marriage. What on earth is counseling for? Only to try to make the innocent look like the ones at fault. Save the marriage. As Carl Gustav Jung wrote, let fall what wants to fall. If you hold it back, it will drag you with it. Divorce? Definitely yes, but certainly not immediate. Oh no, not even considering it. The current laws, driven by boorish, hysterical, selfish, frustrated, and extremist feminists, have unfortunately been enacted by inept, submissive, and weak male politicians eager to please and not lose electoral support from women. These laws are unjustly pro-female. Even in cases of proven infidelity, women receive a 50/50 division of all assets, rights to the house, primary custody of any children, generous maintenance until they find a job, which, of course, they rarely do, and exorbitant child support, where financial well-being always takes precedence over the dignity of the offended, betrayed, and humiliated person. It often happens that the unfaithful woman, after divorce, can ensure she continues living with her lover at the expense of her ex-husband, who is sometimes forced to live in destitution, humiliated and beaten, as they say. It is as if one were being paid to betray. A repugnant situation that no politician ever dares to address with fairer laws. Could I have endured this? Of course not, and in the absence of an ironclad prenuptial agreement, which I did not have. But now, in retrospect, I regret not having pursued. I strongly advise every newlywed to sign one. I had to find another solution. If the law does not defend me, well, I will defend myself. I've always been a quiet and sociable guy, even if I sometimes seemed overly sweet and submissive. But even before I took up martial arts, I never allowed people to walk all over me. Being nice does not equate to being foolish and submissive. I was kind and good-natured, and never struck first, but those who came looking for me always found me. For example, I remember that as a kid we often played in the yard after school, exchanging comic books. There was also a boy, barely older than us, who sometimes took advantage of us by bullying, giving one comic book and taking two in return, forcibly preventing the owner from reclaiming it. He attempted the same tactic with me, but after I simply took him by the hand, bending his fingers nearly to the breaking point and forcing him to kneel to avoid further pain while begging me to let go, he stayed away for a long time. When he returned, he had become more pliable and friendly. But back to the present. My mind, though shaken by what had happened, was already working feverishly. The hardest part would have been to play it cool with that unfaithful woman, who would soon be home again, freshly showered, not to remove her gym sweat, but to erase any sign of her liaison. That scoundrel. I certainly never knew her well, but she didn't know me either. I would try to fill that void of hers soon. Punctual as a utility bill, I heard the key turn in the lock and the door opened. Emily, my dearest Emily, came in, and after throwing her bag on a chair, walked over, threw her arms around my neck, and kissed me passionately. Then, with soft doe eyes, she said, "I didn't ring because I wasn't sure if you were resting. How are you, Nat? Are you recovering?" I looked at her, trying not to let anything show. How could she be so false? What monster had I married? The spirit of John Wayne had fortunately entered me, and I replied, "Much better, thank you. I really think I can go back to work tomorrow. Maybe I'll even see the doctor to get his opinion." Good idea. "So maybe by our session on Saturday, you'll be in tip-top shape," she said mischievously, winking at me. The issue of intimacy between us was another problem I had to solve. I had no intention of engaging in an unsatisfying encounter, even with protection. The next day, I actually went to the doctor and, emphasizing what had happened to me, got tests prescribed. The perfect alibi for being temporarily distant from the unfaithful woman. "What did the doctor tell you, dear?" she asked. He examined me and prescribed various blood and urine tests. After asking a few questions and palpating my abdomen, he suggested a possible urinary tract infection and advised sexual rest at least until we have the results. It shouldn't be anything serious, but I guess we'll have to skip our meeting tomorrow. Too bad, but the important thing is that you're okay. You'll see it's nothing serious. I think so too. I hope to get back on track soon and put the ball in the hole. Of course, my intentions were quite the opposite. The next day at work, I took 2 hours off and went to my wife's gym, asking for information while pretending that I intended to join. I got the schedules for the various group classes, and the receptionist also pointed out the 2 instructors who alternated during the opening hours, one of whom was Mark. His special feature was that, in addition to assisting the attendees, he performed recovery massages upon request in a small private room. I was well aware that besides massages, much more could happen in that little room, away from prying eyes. Seen from a distance, Mark immediately struck me as obnoxious, surely because he was the jerk who had made love to a married woman. Indeed, my married woman. But not only for that. He was the typical arrogant jock with long hair, a statuesque physique, and undoubtedly killer abs beneath his tight t-shirt. His "I'm all about me" posture, falsely deferential to the fairer sex, his loose talk, and his 24-tooth smile were the printed cliché of a ladies' man. It took only a few minutes for me to fully frame him. The jerk. I noted the weekly schedules on the advertising sheets they gave me, thanked them, and said I would think about it before leaving. I certainly didn't want to spend the rest of my days in jail, so murder was ruled out. However, for serious injuries, the situation was different. No one was aware of my wife's affair, so no one could suspect me as the perpetrator of the assault and bodily harm. The expected sentence was 4 to 6 years, even if I were discovered, which was highly unlikely. With obvious mitigating factors for the shock I had suffered, good behavior, and a couple of good lawyers, I would have gotten away with only a couple of years in prison before moving on to probation. It was a calculated risk I could take. On Saturday and Sunday, for a couple of hours each day in front of my laptop, I dedicated myself to research on the dark web. My previous experience enabled me, in a short time, to find exactly what I was looking for, and with 3 Bitcoin deposits, appropriately increased to ensure fast shipping and delivery at an agreed time, I completed the purchase. On Thursday, in strictly confidential packages with no indication of their contents, I was in possession of everything I needed, having bought a 4th item from a household goods store on the other side of town. The previous Monday, I had taken 2 additional hours off from the office, where no one objected given my illness. At the end of Mark's morning shift, I went outside the gym, waited for him. And since he did not know me, I followed him on foot until I spotted his car parked not far away, taking note of the license plate. On Tuesday, with Mark still on the morning shift, I arrived a little before his exit to locate his parking lot and sat in my car, ready to follow him and locate his residence. It was quick and easy because he parked a few miles away and then slipped into a doorway. I couldn't help but smirk. The second piece had fallen into place. Friday was the day for my doubles tennis match, and Emily was, or appeared to be, a little preoccupied. I say appeared because by now I couldn't be sure of anything she was doing. I couldn't know if she was sincere or faking it. Are you sure? Have you recovered well from your illness so you can play sports? What about your infection? I replied, smiling and winking. Yes, I feel good now. I've already missed Monday, and I don't want to lose my shape. The tests aren't in yet, but you'll see that, assuming there is an infection, it's nothing serious, and we'll make up for lost time. This time, the spirit of Harrison Ford had come to my aid. I finished packing my bag, not forgetting to add the tube of newly purchased balls, and then left after exchanging our usual affectionate kiss. Sometimes I truly had a hard time pretending that nothing had happened. Be careful, don't hurt yourself. I'll be waiting for you for dinner. Kiss you, were her parting words. In fact, I was not going to play tennis at all. I had been in touch with my usual companions, whom Emily did not know, and had declined the appointment, citing my illness from last week, which, after all, had been real. I loaded the tennis bag into the trunk, right next to my capacious hiking backpack, where I had already put everything I needed. Then I calmly headed for the area where the jerk lived. I parked well away from his front door and waited for the right moment. When the time came, I took my backpack out of the trunk and carried it to the back seat. While still inside, I pulled out one of my purchases, a simple pair of rubber boots of size 13, 3 sizes larger than mine, which I had weighted down with lead. If the police were to take any footprints, they would belong to someone of a far different size and weight than mine. I checked the time and exited the car, carrying my backpack on my shoulder. I was bundled up in a black waterproof down jacket with a hood. Given the season, it was already dark and cold. My attire was absolutely justified. Not a soul was to be seen, and I slowly approached the jerk's residence. It was almost time for his return from the gym, so I stopped behind a parked car, carefully observing the area, hoping that no passers-by or cars would interfere with my plans. I would have to postpone it until next Friday, leaving the two scoundrels with another week of calm before their reckoning. But fate was on my side. The jerk appeared from around the corner, and one last look confirmed that no one else was nearby. I pulled out another innocent item from my backpack, a wooden kitchen rolling pin. As Mark was about to put the key in the door, I leaped out from behind the car and struck him hard on the head, knocking him unconscious and sending him to the ground. Quickly I took from my backpack my dark web purchase, not so innocent this time. A vial of propofol at 2.5 milligrams /, which I swiftly injected into the jerk's arm. Propofol, the most commonly administered drug for inducing general anesthesia, causes ultra-short-acting deep sedation. Its onset is about 30 seconds, lasting for 5 minutes. For the next 5 minutes, the jerk would be at my mercy. He wouldn't feel a thing. But once those 5 minutes passed, of course he would feel. I imagined his screams. Looking around cautiously, with the jerk lying on the ground, I ensured no witnesses were present, and then with the rolling pin, I broke both his knees and both his elbows, struck his hands and feet, fracturing all his fingers. When I finished, I put the rolling pin back in my backpack and retrieved my latest dark web purchase, a simple portable blowtorch, available at any hardware store, but purchased in a way that ensured no shopkeeper could give away any information about it. I turned on the device and immediately a 2800-degree flame was released. I aimed the blowtorch at his genital region, first targeting his primary organ, then his sensitive areas, and once more his primary organ, ensuring thorough damage. After that I got up and walked away from the scene, turning the corner as soon as I could. Trying not to quicken my pace, within a couple of minutes I reached my car, took off my boots, got in, started the engine, and drove away. After a couple of kilometers, near a garbage dumpster, I disposed of the boots and the syringe, while the rolling pin was burned with the blowtorch. I glanced at my watch. It was time to go home after my tennis match. The weekend passed quietly. I could tell from her expression that Emily longed for our usual Saturday intimacy, but at that moment she made no advances. I had gone to pick up my tests, which would be reviewed by the doctor later in the week. I tried to take her out, shopping, dining, and going to the movies, so that she could not hear or read any local news reports. On Monday, we both went to work, and in the afternoon we were busy, me at tennis and her at the gym for her Pilates class. When she returned, I was already home, lounging on the couch in front of the TV. She was not her usual self. "Hello, Nat," she said as she approached for a kiss, but without her usual enthusiasm. "Hi. What's going on? I see you're looking down. Did you hurt yourself at the gym?" No, I'm fine." "So what? Tell me everything. I can see something is bothering you." "Well, yes. I was told at the gym that one of our instructors had an accident." "An accident? What kind of accident?" "A traffic accident." "No. Actually, I was told that he was attacked. He is now hospitalized." "Attacked? And do they know who did it? What injuries did he sustain?" "Nothing definite is known. I'll call later for updated information." "Well, but why are you so interested in him? What's his name?" "It's not that I'm particularly interested. He was my instructor. I knew him well. His name is Mark." Sure. Well then, keep me informed." Shortly after dinner, Emily picked up her cell phone and made a call, moving to another room so the TV wouldn't drown her voice. But I could clearly hear her words. "Hi, I'm Emily. Any word on Mark?" "What? No. I can't believe it. But how could you do such a thing?" "Yes, I understand. All right, we'll talk again." "No, I don't think I'm coming on Monday." "Okay, bye." I pretended to be interested. In fact, I was genuinely interested. "So what did they tell you?" "Bad news. They butchered him. They broke all his bones, and then, not content, they did something to his nether regions. To his manhood. Don't be vulgar." "I think so. There is no definite news." "Well, if so, the culprit is the butler." "How?" "It's a figure of speech, a typical cliché. If they hit him in the genitals, he might have been the partner of a woman who cheated on him with your instructor. Surely the police will think that way. Do you happen to know any woman who was cheating on her husband with this Mark?" I saw her eyes widen, like a deer caught in headlights. "But no. What are you saying?" Then she immediately turned and walked away, interrupting our informative conversation. The following days were important. I learned that the police had visited the gym and asked questions. Surely they, too, suspected something related to the extramarital activities of some promiscuous woman, and although I remained fairly quiet, there was always the possibility that they might come and ask Emily some questions. That did not happen, a clear sign that her affair had remained hidden from everyone. Only a strange twist of fate had caused me to learn about it, and I gave a bitter little smile, realizing I had not been so paranoid after all. Of course, my sweet little wife was also convinced that I was in the dark, and the thought that I was responsible for what had happened to Mark didn't even cross her mind. After 2 weeks, our daily life resumed almost normally, with my regular tennis. She also resumed her gym routine, partly because otherwise it would have been suspicious. The only change was that, fortunately, she had not made any further sexual advances, and I understood that what had happened to the jerk was still on her mind. He had not yet left the hospital, still in a cast, and I knew that to urinate, he would have to use an external bag while awaiting a small prosthesis. He, like all those who pursue married women, was nothing but a first-class jerk, and so the punishment was deserved. Too bloody? Not at all. Those who chase married women, even if they are in crisis, are despicable people who, instead of trying to make peace with the couple, use all available means to drive them further apart, for the sole purpose of enjoying their pleasures, heedless of permanently destroying a couple's life and harming any innocent children. The punishment was by no means undeserved, and if the conventions of so-called civilized society do not contemplate such an offense, well, I do contemplate it, and perhaps this society may be civilized, But it is not at all just. What about her? If the jerk was guilty, she was certainly no less culpable. After all, he had certainly not promised me love and fidelity, while my wife had. She had brutally betrayed me, and now I hated her with all my heart. Still, until recently, she had been the love of my life. I would have given my life for hers. I couldn't completely erase my feelings. Maybe I was too good, but I wouldn't lay a finger on her, at least physically. However, she couldn't know that. Another little help came from television, one of those silly, useless talk shows where pseudo-experts discuss everything to generate ratings, especially among the female audience, at practically no cost. I had read the programming, and knowing the topic that would be covered that evening after dinner, I tuned in. When the well-known host introduced the guests, psychologists, priests, on what grounds, it is not known, lawyers, and family counselors, Emily seemed distracted. However, when the topic of the evening, namely marital infidelity, was revealed, she immediately perked up and followed the entire broadcast attentively. At the end, I was ready to start an innocent dialogue about it, but Emily beat me to it. Interesting broadcast, isn't it? Yes, quite, I replied, trying not to appear too intrigued. She continued, since the world began, men have always been cheaters. If women do it too now, it's just fair equality. She had started the skirmish, and another piece fell into place so I could go wild. Statistics say that contrary to the past, women now cheat more than men, although they are more reluctant to confess it during interviews. Maybe it's because a woman with a lover remains labeled promiscuous, while a man is seen as a Latin lover. This is an old cliché, which might explain why women admit it less, but it does not clarify why women cheat more. Well, they certainly have more opportunities, more possibilities. Of course, but that has always been the case. What has changed is the different perception of betrayal that men and women have. Meaning, whereas in the past a woman who cheated did so generally only when she fell in love with someone else, perhaps even because of a bad marriage, now she also does so to taste the forbidden fruit, for the thrill of adventure, for the sake of making a fool of her husband without getting caught. Perhaps she is sure that even if discovered, she would be forgiven. You can't throw away a marriage for a fling. Here's the thing, and that's why a woman is more willing to forgive infidelity than a man. For her, cheating is, all in all, a minor issue, easily overcome, perhaps with some cheap counseling, while for a man it can represent the end of the entire relationship, built on trust and loyalty. You wouldn't forgive even a little betrayal, Emily said in a slightly trembling voice. I think you should know me by now. Cheating is never a mistake, but a choice. The cheater is a vile, disgusting person, a jerk who creates irreversible damage, heedless of all the sadness, pain, anger, humiliation, frustration, fear, and trauma inflicted on the betrayed. Such a person cannot be forgiven, and I think it should be considered a crime on par with rape. Both create not only physical but also psychological and mental damage, sometimes irreversible. But if she were sincerely repentant and promised not to do it again, couldn't you just forget and forgive her? No, it would utterly disgust me, and I could never be intimate with her again. The idea of engaging with her would sicken me. But if you think about it, there is more, something beyond the act itself, that someone might even pretend to forgive. I say pretend because deep down one would never truly forgive. You cannot simply erase the memory of your wife being intimate with another. It would haunt you forever. The fundamental issue is this: if a person cheats, you cannot erase the betrayal. You cannot go back. It's not like pressing the del key on a computer. A person who has cheated, whether once, 10 times, or 100 times, becomes a traitor, and that label remains forever. How is it possible to stay next to a betrayer? How can you remain with someone who greets you every morning with "Hello, I love you" before going to work, yet instead goes to lunch with her lover? How can you bear to be with someone who, when she comes home, kisses you as if nothing happened, even though she may have just been intimate with her lover. How can you stand someone as false as Judas? Only someone with a severely damaged mind could tolerate such a woman. Emily paled and said nothing. She quickly got up from the couch, and to hide her nervousness, headed for the kitchen. I am generally not a vengeful person, but her betrayal was clearly bringing out the worst in me. The die was cast, and the next evening, tense and desperate to know my final thoughts, she returned to the subject. You told me yesterday that you would never forgive betrayal. Sure, that's right. And if absolutely hypothetically, you were to find out that I had betrayed you, what would you do? Would you leave? Would you divorce me? Why are you asking me this? It's not that you cheated on me, is it? Absolutely not, she said with conviction, though her eyes betrayed uncertainty. It's just to know. A simple conversation. So let's converse, I thought. Well, in the event that I found out about your cheating, which I hope I never have to consider, a simple 50-50th divorce would be too little for me. So what? First, I would severely injure your lover, and then I would arrange for your demise. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw her pale mouth agape. She was silent for a few seconds, then stammered, my murder. Of course, your murder. If you cheated on me, you wouldn't expect to get away with it, would you? Of course I couldn't do it personally. I would be the prime suspect. I'd contact two well-connected individuals from the underground while ensuring I had a solid alibi for the day the operation was scheduled. I saw her nearly faint. To avoid betraying my feelings with my expression, I turned and headed to the kitchen to get a beer. Then, regaining my composure, I concluded, well, since you never betrayed me, you can rest easy, right? I turned around again so I could sneer freely without being seen. Over the next 2 days, Emily was a shadow of her former self. She spoke in monosyllables, ate little, looked at me suspiciously, flinched at every slight movement, went to bed early, and tossed and turned all night. Surely she was connecting the dots of the hypothetical scenario, and the notion that I had anything to do with the assault on her lover was more than a mere doubt. The possibility that my earlier words had been nothing more than an abstract speech, with no relevance to the actual case, was objectively slim. If so, she must have felt that her life was in danger. I almost felt a little sorry for her, but thinking back to what she had done behind my back, I pressed on with my plan. The next day, at the end of an unusually quiet dinner, with only a few monosyllables exchanged, after finishing the last drop of wine from my glass, I casually said without looking directly at her, "The big boss called me into the office today. What did he want?" They organized a refresher course in Mountain View, where people from all over come, each representing a software house, and they chose me to attend. She looked up, watching me intently, then asked, "And when do you have to go?" "I'm leaving in 10 days, and I'll be gone for a week." Pale as a sheet, she uttered no more and, getting up, walked away unsteadily. "I don't feel well. I'm going to bed for a while." Over the next 2 days, it seemed her mind was reeling. She acted erratically, kept as far away from me as possible, and, unable to teach, she took sick days from work. I played with her like cat and mouse. Eventually, not wanting to push too hard, I offered her an escape. As Emily sat on the living room couch, her gaze empty, I walked over and sat next to her. Surprised, she looked at me quizzically, waiting for what I had to say, and she didn't have to wait long. "You know, I thought back to our conversation a few days ago about betrayal within marriage. Have you changed your mind?" she asked with a new light in her eyes. "Not exactly, though. Keep in mind that we're speaking entirely theoretically. It's not that I think you're cheating on me." She lowered her eyes. At that moment, I was sure she realized I was fully aware of her affair. Every doubt vanished. Yet she did not have the courage to confess. She knew me well, but after what I had said, she understood she would not be forgiven. At least she had the fortitude to listen. Yes, of course. Well, I was saying that I haven't changed my opinion. But on the off chance that you had betrayed me, you'd have little chance of avoiding consequences." She looked at me intently. I could see she was momentarily breathless. Surprised by my words, she hung on every syllable as I continued with a slight smile. "There would be a way to save you. You would have to file for divorce, leaving me ownership of the entire house, an 80/20th split of the joint assets in my favor, no alimony or further demands, and then move to a different state, never to be seen again. Since you would be the one asking, the judge would have no difficulty granting the request, and soon the divorce would be finalized." Then I got dressed and went out for a walk, leaving her to stew in her own thoughts. When I returned, she was already in bed. After 5 days, it was Monday. Returning from my tennis match, I found the house empty and an envelope on the kitchen table. It contained the divorce papers, already signed, along with the division and conditions I had proposed. She had disappeared. I never saw her again. Thanks to everyone who took the time to listen to today's stories. If you enjoyed it, please consider liking and subscribing if you haven't already. Feel free to share your thoughts on the events in the comments below. Take care.